Hey everybody, happy Friday. If you are joining me live, thanks so much for joining. If you are watching the replay, please leave a comment and thanks for watching. I hope that this video is useful for you. So today we're going to be talking about burnout, and specifically, obviously this is a huge topic, and also, it's a huge topic in terms of everything that we could talk about when it comes to burnout, but it's also a huge topic. Hello, Carissa Lane Wellness, thanks for joining. It's also a huge topic in the sense that I think coming out of, this ongoing pandemic, that a lot of people are feeling burnt out. And I did like a quick Google search, and another interesting thing that we find is that when it comes to gender differences in burnout, that women are on average much more likely to report feeling burnt out compared to men. So this is a topic that it's a health issue that impacts women very deeply. And so today we're going to be talking about that and specifically focusing on, what is burnout? I want to share with you how I define it, how I approach it, because this is something that I work with clients on, and give you some of the things to look out for so that you can, assess for yourself if you might be feeling burnt out, if you might be headed in that direction. So before we go any further, my name is Jen Costanza. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. I work with women who are feeling the effects of burnout, and specifically who are feeling super stressed, are exhausted, are gaining weight, and just want to take back their health. And I help them do that through private coaching. So today, the first place I want to start is by just reviewing what is the official definition of burnout. I think that, tell me, when you hear the term burnout, what do you first think of? I'd be interested to hear that. The first thing that you might think of when you hear the term burnout might be something more related to like the workplace. And that's generally, what the official definition kind of centers on. And so I'm going to read you real quick the World Health Organization definition of burnout. So they provided a definition, they kind of provided official classification of burnout as a disease in 2019. And they defined it this way: burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It's characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. Burnout refers specifically to phenomena in the occupational context and should not be applied to describe experiences in other areas of life. Is this kind of more or less what you think of when you hear burnout, when you hear that term? I want to give just a couple critiques of that definition that I think will help us just expand our definition of burnout to figure out what's really going on with our own health. On the one hand, this question of workplace, I think, is up for debate. What qualifies as a workplace? When we think about burnout in the workplace, oftentimes what you might be thinking about is a person working in a big company, right? Where you don't really have a lot of control over your work environment. But a couple other examples of, people that might be, hello, the Burgonator. A couple other examples of people that might be experiencing burnout might be, caregivers. Personally, I have worked with women who are full-time caregivers, in this case, military caregivers to their loved one who was in the military. It's a full-time job. That's obviously not the only type of caregivers, but a lot of caregivers, that's their full-time job, caring for a loved one, right? And it's really easy to feel like burnt out in that sense, even though you're not physically going to a traditional job every day, right? it's still, this is your life's work. Moms, another person. So many of us, people who are moms, tend to get to a point sometimes when they feel burnt out. And also, this is still kind of in the realm of workplace, but I think about people who are self-employed, and specifically who are solo self-employed, solopreneurs. There's so many people, myself included, who work for ourselves. We determine our work and environment. We determine who we work with and what we do on a daily basis, right? But even so, it's still possible to become burnt out. So, and I think that's important to remember, because when we see the solutions offered for burnout, when you're looking on the internet or you're reading what the WHO says, they wrote another whole article I'm not going to share with you right now on, proposed solutions for mitigating burnout in the workplace. It's always kind of directed at these large institutional factors, which obviously I think are very, very important. As a sociologist, I'm very well aware of, the impact of work on individuals and society and lives and on society in general. And so workplace is so important, right? But there could be other things going on, especially for people who have complete control over their workplace, complete control. We might put that in quotation marks there, but you're still feeling burnt out. You're still feeling stressed and exhausted. Maybe you're feeling that cynicism about, or kind of disconnection from the tasks of the work that you do every day. Another thing that I think that this traditional definition of burnout leaves out is that there could be other stressors going on in our life that are making the stress that we feel from work even worse, that are exacerbating that stress. So that stress, those types of stressors could be, in many cases, stresses having to do with family, with your kids, with your romantic relationship, with your partner, right? These are all, it could be some other things going on that can just exacerbate workplace stress, even though it's not exactly related to work. And the other thing is that this definition of burnout it doesn't address the physical health impacts of burnout. And I really feel that those physical health impacts are so important, especially for women, because we see them. I mean, I've seen it in my own life, and I see it in women who I've talked to and who are my clients, that this is a really serious problem. So I want to go over what some of those health impacts of burnout might be. Or maybe we could just call them symptoms. What are some of the physical symptoms of burnout? Before I do, I want to paint a little picture, what was my personal experience with burnout? And maybe, if any of that resonates with you, let me know. So you might, if you've been following me for a while, you might know that I used to be a sociology professor. My PhD is in sociology. I completed it at Brown University. And doing the experience of doing a PhD is just super, super, it's really stressful. I really don't know anyone in my grad cohort who was not experiencing some kind of stress. And quite a lot of us were also, I think now looking back, it's not just an issue of depression or anxiety. It really is burnout, because it has to do with, the situation we were in. Carissa Lane Wellness says, I love that you added in the other stressors like family and environment. Yes, I find that many of my clients, healthcare providers who are experiencing burnout, are caring for both patients and family. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's not just about what's going on at work, right? There's so many other things that are just compounding. I think it's especially true in the pandemic, when the space between work and life for so many people really got kind of melded together in many ways. I don't know, you can tell me, but I imagine for healthcare providers, obviously healthcare providers are physically going to work, or were physically going to work during the pandemic, but I'm sure that added so much stress on their family life as well, to be away from the home so much and be worrying about infecting their family, etc. Anyways, my personal experience, doing a PhD program, now looking back, I feel like I was kind of like on the verge of burnout the entire time. But it really didn't come to a head till, I would say, my last year or two, like my last year when I was finishing up my dissertation, and then in the years afterwards, when I was trying to figure out where were my next steps. Some things that I experienced during that time in grad school, one of them was constant digestive problems. I was, at one point I was put on multiple medications for acid reflux that just wouldn't go away. I remember one day one night actually, I woke up in the middle of the night, or I was probably trying to sleep actually, because I was going to sleep at such a late time at night during grad school, and I started feeling a pain, in my chest, and I got so nervous about it, I actually called health services. That was, the grad school version of the doctor at the time, to try to figure out what was going on. And then after that, I went into the office and they put me on medications that today I know, proton pump inhibitors, antacid medications, are pretty bad for you, and they actually make the problems worse. I was under a lot of stress, and I didn't really connect that with stress at the time, with the stress that I was under, but now I can see, now knowing what I know, I can see that those things were connected. Later on, when things kind of started to snowball for me health-wise, I got to the point where, and these are the couple years after grad school, when I was, I had the pressure of teaching every day. I had the pressure of trying to publish and always being judged on what I could produce in terms of what I was publishing. I had the big pressure of finding a tenure-track job, which I had been taught to believe was the only possibly valid career path for a person who got a PhD from my program, and that anything else, would basically make me worthless. That's a lot of pressures. But on top of all of that, I also had the stress of a lot of my friends from grad school. Basically, my social support system had moved away, and I didn't have them anymore. I had the stress of, I had that, and then I was living by myself. When this might sound weird, because I don't know, I'd never lived by myself at that time, and it was kind of sad. I'd always had, my partner, or before him, roommates, so, and that's another thing. I had the stress of having left a toxic relationship only to jump into another one, going alongside everything that was going on at work. I had, worries eventually about my mom and her health, that eventually that really was the thing that kind of was my turning point for me to try to figure out what am I going to do with my life. But alongside all of those things, I also had symptoms that we can consider as symptoms of burnout. And when I say symptoms of burnout, what I'm talking about are things that can happen to your body as a result of ongoing chronic stress. And using the term burnout, a lot of that stress is probably from the workplace, but like I said, it can also come from these other sources and can just kind of compound itself. So symptoms that I had were really frequent, very debilitating migraines. I was gaining weight, especially around my middle, my tummy area. And I was a person who had, for most of my life, I'd felt like I was pretty in shape, pretty healthy. Personally, I think a lot of my self-esteem was tied to my appearance, and so that was really difficult for me, to be gaining weight and not really, on the one hand, not really knowing what I should do to make that stop happening, but also feeling so overwhelmed with everything that was going on in my life that I couldn't figure out where I'd even start to make changes. I was exhausted pretty much all of the time. I would wake up and be exhausted even if I had slept the night before. I'd get home from work and I'd be too mentally and physically exhausted to even go to my yoga studio, which was literally a 3-minute walk down the street from my apartment. As a result of that stress, I was turning to foods that were really not great for me and exacerbated my problems. I ate a lot of cheese and charcuterie boards with a glass of wine and hung out in front of Netflix. That was kind of my way of decompressing from all of the stress in my life. And I think I already mentioned I excuse me, had a lot of serious stomach problems that were not resolving. I was drinking a lot of coffee also, which I'm sure made things worse. I had problems sleeping. This can be really common. Another common symptom is insomnia, not being able to get to sleep at night, or waking up at 3 a.m. and you're up at 3 a.m. and going through your to-do list and worrying about whatever it is, that's been stressing you out. So these were kind of my experiences of burnout. And really short version, I'm not going to go through the details of how I kind of climbed out of that, except to say the first thing I started doing was really focusing on what I was eating. When my mom had a health scare, that kind of was like the impetus for me to start getting healthier about my food, so that I could take what I was learning about food and help her to eat better. That was kind of like my entry point into really focusing on my own health and wellness. But for today, I'm not going to get into that too much. What I really want to do is just give you a rundown of what are some of the symptoms that you might be experiencing that could be related to chronic stress that you're feeling at work and in your life in general. And that could be that we can kind of classify as burnout, or in other words, this is what I think about when I think about burnout. So to reiterate, I think of burnout as a health condition, not just something that's mental or emotional, having to do with work. That this is a matter of you being overloaded with stress, and your body, because of that ongoing stress overload, reacting in different ways. And what are those ways? Well, on the one hand, stress kind of begets stress. That might sound weird, but chronic anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, even maybe having panic attacks. That's something that I forgot to mention that I personally experienced. Panic attacks at very odd times. I remember once it happened in a grocery store. Problem sleeping, obviously, insomnia, or a feeling of being tired but wired. So you're really tired, you're really exhausted all day long. You might have been sleeping at, falling asleep at your desk, you're fueling with coffee. You go to bed, you just really, really want to sleep and you can't. You're just kind of like your mind is on alert. Or you fall asleep, but then you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't get back to bed. Your mind is just on alert and you can't stop thinking. As a result of a lot of that sleep, just lack of sleep, just feeling exhausted, being stressed out a lot, feeling stressed out a lot, it kind of leads us to feel exhaustion. It leads to fatigue. Another symptom that might pop up for you would be, what some people like to call brain fog. So it might be like difficulty focusing on a task. It could be kind of some like memory problems, not being able to think of the word that you want to say. Another one, I've already mentioned this, migraines, digestive problems. So for me, my digestive problems that I experienced as a result of chronic stress at work was acid reflux. For you, maybe it would be something different, maybe just IBS, weight gain, obviously I've mentioned that. Weight gain where you're gaining weight and maybe you hadn't previously been gaining that kind of weight. And specifically weight gain around your midsection. This can often be the result of burnout, or a symptom of burnout rather, a result of ongoing chronic stress, especially if you think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and it's not working. Having cravings, this is kind of related to weight gain, having cravings, intense cravings for sugar and fat. When we are stressed out, our body craves sugar and fat. It craves, calories that are going to help it fight off, whatever kind of threat that it thinks that we're facing. Some other symptoms that you might be experiencing: decreased sex drive, right? Constantly being stressed screws with our hormones, including our sex hormones. For women, it can result also in fertility problems. For some women who are chronically stressed over a long period of time, it can lead to them missing periods or all of a sudden not having a period anymore. That did not happen to me, but if it's happening to you and you've been also feeling a lot of stress, you might want to talk to your doctor about seeing if there's a connection there. Inflammation, just general inflammation, feeling achy, feeling aches and pains, feeling puffy or bloated, just feeling sore. That kind of inflammation can over time result from chronic stress. And a couple other kind of longer term things that you might experience as a result of burnout if you do not do something to resolve it, to really deal with it, are autoimmune conditions. A couple really common ones that can result from chronic stress, from burnout, are hypothyroidism, when your thyroid stops producing thyroid hormone or isn't producing enough of thyroid hormone, and type 2 diabetes. That's another common, obviously it's one of the most common autoimmune conditions, chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease. These are all of these chronic diseases that we hear about can be a result over time of chronic stress and the behaviors that we develop to cope with it and not dealing with that chronic stress. So just to kind of sum up here, burnout, it's not just a workplace phenomenon. It can be, you can be burnt out even if you don't go to a formal day job. If you're a caregiver, if you're a person that works at home, if you work for yourself, if you're a full-time mom, these are all types of people who can get to the point where you're just burnt out. And it's not just something that is in your head. It is a health condition. It is something that, over time, this chronic stress that we feel from work and other stressors going on in our life can lead to all of these different symptoms. And so what I would kind of suggest, I think, as just a next step to think about is if you're feeling a lot of stress, and you're also seeing some of these symptoms, you might want to think, could there be a connection? It might be something to talk to your doctor about. If you're having some of these symptoms, and I really think, the top ones that I would look out for and that, I tend to, when I work with clients, the ones that they're kind of usually having when they come to see me would be, obviously experiencing a lot of stress, experiencing weight gain or stubborn weight that doesn't want to seem to come off, and feeling exhausted. Those are some top symptoms that you might experience from burnout. if you're feeling any of these symptoms, please feel free to reach out. And this is something that I work with women on all the time. And if you have questions about it, send me a message, send me a DM, and maybe it's something that I can help you out with, or at least kind of point you in the right direction. And you can think about whether it's something that you want to start, trying to fix in your life. So that's all for today. I hope that this, rundown of what is burnout was helpful for you. If it was, please share this video with a friend, and let me know. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.